Okay, so using my drill press and my beloved Dremels, where did they go? I was able to flatten down the side on this pawl so that it wasn't like worn at an angle anymore on both sides. And also, like I said earlier, I rounded the edges a little bit, but it really doesn't make too much difference. And also with the gear, right in there, in the two spots, I also flattened them down so they don't have like an angle where the paw was like jumping out. It was like jumping out when it was in gear, which was really the actual sort of symptom of what was happening. So I'm gonna go try to grind down the cam now, the shifter cam, so that I can get that in the right position. So it places this paw in the right position between the neutral first and second. So let's see how that goes. Okay, with the shift cam installed and the little detent little button right there, I measured the distance from this little dot down here to the end of this right here using my caliper, and I have like basically a stock measurement for first gear and second gear in millimeters, so I can have a baseline to go from. See what happens. I'm going to try to grind the areas on the cam so that I can change the position of that. See how that goes. Okay, now with all the modifications done, it looks to me like if it shifts right from the shifter perspective, it could actually be working just fine, because now with this paw it's in place pretty precisely. The only slop is between the little finger and the little wheel that it sits in on the other side, but it's right in line with the marks. And then when I put it together, okay, wait a minute, there we go. So that little thing's like right now, that paw is right exactly where it wants to be, and this is what's driving this output shaft. So this is spinning. It's not going to want to cause, it doesn't feel like it wants to push out or anything, or push that paw in. And right now it's pretty much in place where it wants to go. Also, I noticed that when you shift it into first gear, same with first gear, now first gear is located just right. It's right exactly where it wants to be. So what I had to do, so I created the spring, but I also had to add another shim on this side of it, like a little washer basically. So there's a washer on both sides, the spring that I made, and it holds this in place very, very precisely. It's very stiff. It may not have enough clearance yet, so I got to check the shifting, but because the other spring was a lot softer and there was more room to move. So when the shifter that actuates this goes to push this over, it's pushing this paw over on the other side, and it has to have enough slack that when this pushes to the detent, that it can give enough so that while it's waiting for it to line up with the slot in the gear, that it can have enough give right here to allow it to sort of wait and then click in real fast. So I'm going to try and set up the shifter, this thing, try to see if I can stick it in the case where it belongs, and then which is through this hole, and see if it actuates the whole thing properly. So we'll see. So the modifications I made, well, they're not terribly pretty. It was right in there and then right in here. So for first gear it moves it less, and for third gear it moves it more, but it made this kind of detent spot kind of short. So I'm hoping that that doesn't cause any problems. It shouldn't, but never know. But I ended up grinding it down, and it wasn't much, but I gained probably about 1.5 millimeters for third gear or second gear, and about like positive, and then about almost a millimeter, I guess, in the negative for the first gear to help locate it better. where you want that little paw thing to be, because this is how this operates. As the detent hits these little notches, it pushes this guy here back and forth. So let's see what happens. I'm going to try and see if it'll shift now.